Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be, and welcome to a very special interview of the Final Cut podcast. Today, I'm joined by a lady who is an actress and a producer. She's been in the industry for 13 years, and like me, she's been an interviewer. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Rebekah Kennedy.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you very much for coming on. So, firstly, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Not too bad, thank you very much. So, how did you get started out?
Well, the long and the short of it, I started doing theater when I was 12. I was really interested in doing the stage, being on the stage when I was around 4. I saw my first play. My mom took me to see a children's show, and I kind of knew at that point, my 4-year-old self, I don't remember the show at all, but I remember after, looking at my mom and saying, I want to do that. And, being forced and really taken seriously at the time. So after much begging and, not making the cheerleading squad when I was 12, my mom finally was like, all right, let's see if you like this. Let's try. So I started doing, local theater. I grew up in Texas, anyone that doesn't know me. And so I was doing theater there and did theater through high school. And then I majored in theater in college. And then after I graduated college, I was planning on, going to move to New York and do all that. And I came back to Texas. I went to school in Florida, came back to Texas, and was going to, kind of get my bearings and figure out the next step and the next plan. And so I was still doing theater as well there in the meantime. And I was teaching at a local theater, like kids. And I had an interest in film and TV. I had taken some film classes in college, but I didn't really know too much about it. I didn't really know how to get into it. Texas has some stuff, but it wasn't like being in California where it's, all over your face. So a friend of mine was like, hey, are you interested in this? And kind of, got me started. And I started doing, background work, and I worked with a guy who referred me to his Louisiana agent at the time, and they signed me, and I started just doing, short films and student films and anything I could get my hands on that sort of fit me. I would submit to and audition, and I built, my reel that way. And then after I got married, things started, picking up for me. That's when I did House Hunting and Season of the Witch with Nicolas Cage, and I did a co-star on a TV show, and things, just started rolling. And so then eventually in 2012, I moved to LA, and that's where I live now. So that's kind of a short version of a long tale.
You've officially made it in acting when you've moved to Hollywood.
I guess.
So, as far as acting goes, you've done a fair bit of TV, Station 19, Law & Order SVU, Criminal Minds, to name but a few. I bet they were experiences for you.
Oh, yeah. I've been so lucky and blessed to have been on such awesome shows with such generous and nice cast and crew. Like, all those experiences have just been so wonderful. Criminal Minds was my first guest star, and I was a little bit terrified. And like I said, I had only done, one TV show before that, and it was a much smaller role. So, this was my first time having, multiple days and having a central character to the storyline. And I was very nervous, and they all just put me at ease and made me feel comfortable and at home. And, and the same with SVU. I worked all 8 days on that show, and they just were the nicest bunch and made me feel, it's always weird. It's like a stranger at Thanksgiving. You're coming into a family that's been around for a while, especially SVU and Criminal Minds, and they have a way of working, and you're like, okay, how do I fit into this? How do I work into this cast? And they don't make you feel like you're a stranger. They just welcome you in. So they, Station 19 the same. Like, I worked on that this year, and they were also just so lovely and just kind and encouraging, and just, I don't know, it sounds cliche, I guess, but I don't have enough nice things to say about them. Everybody's just been great and made my experience, that much better, and I didn't want to leave.
It's just like having a really big extended family, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is, especially on a show. I mean, or a movie, you get close to people, and especially if you're working on a long movie or a long show, and then when it's over, it's hard. It's a bit like a breakup, because you're going to see them again, hopefully eventually, but maybe not. Maybe not. So,
but you always hope you can.
You collect family as you go.
Yeah. So you are the person to ask this next question. So you've guest starred and been the main guest star, as you've already said. So what is the difference between someone who appears just for a scene and one who appears for the majority of an episode?
Yeah, so for anyone that doesn't really, isn't in the business and doesn't really know how it works exactly, you have kind of the hierarchy of roles, and, the co-star is the smallest role, and that's usually people, like you said, that come in for a day, have a couple lines, maybe they could have more depending on the role. And, they're usually there to, move the story along. They're not necessarily a central part of it. And then you've got, the guest star that, might be the main story, like SVU, that was the main story, or you might be one of many stories, like Station 19, there were several stories going on. And my story was, one of them. So, yeah, I mean, normally, as a co-star, you come in for the day and you're like, you get to know everyone and then you kind of leave. So it's harder to, get to know people because you're there for such a short amount of time, and, you're kind of there to do your job and go home. And of course you are as the other as well. But, as a guest star, I got to know the cast and know the crew more too. I got to, really know hair and makeup, and I got to get to know the DP and the camera operators and, the people that behind the scenes that were making it happen and making me look as good as possible as well. You get to know the ADs and just everyone. Whereas, co-star, it's hard because you're there for such a short amount of time. Although important, it's not as easy to really make those relationships. So yeah, having, being able to be on for multiple days, or like I said, SBU, I worked all 8 days. I really got to know everyone, and it felt that was really hard to leave after that because I felt really connected to people, and then all right, bye. And that film's in New York, so I definitely don't get to see those people really much again, except for I've gotten to see one of the producers because she's here, and one of the co-writers lives here, so I've gotten to see him a few times since. But yeah, so that's the main difference, and there's more pressure obviously on the guest star because they are especially if they're the central story, as that's the story that they're about, so you want to make it the most interesting as possible.
So you could literally say a major guest star kind of defines the episode and kind of defines a career as such.
Yeah, I mean, it can, as far as like, when you're wanting to level up to the next, recurring or series regular, as obviously the end goal for most people. And that, if you have a major guest star, that can kind of show people, okay, I can carry a show, or I can be a part of a show for a longer period. This is what I could do if I was on every week. So, it's a great opportunity for actors to show that they can come in and bring an episode to life and continue that on.
Yeah. So I did do my research, and your movie career kind of dwarfs your TV work. I mean, you did mention Nicolas Cage earlier, but you did Season of a Witch with him and Ron Perlman. You've starred in a few movies with Mark Boone Jr. from Sons of Anarchy. I even noticed you did a movie with Mehcad Brooks, who was in Supergirl for, I think it was 5 seasons, and he's now in the Mortal Kombat reboot. So you're not sure in the appearing with famous co-stars department?
Yeah, I mean, I will take it. I'm been super grateful to have worked with all of those people. They've all been so kind and generous, and Boone is wonderful and has suggested me for other projects, and he's lovely. Everyone has been really, really kind to me, and it's been great to work with all of them. I don't have any complaints. Nicolas Cage on set. We were filming in Louisiana in August, and if anyone's ever been there in August, it's sweltering. It's just it's hot and humid and it's horrible. And we were in 14th century costumes, and it was hot. It was outside, and he just made sure I was good. Made sure I had water and I was comfortable. And in the movie, if people haven't seen it, he stabs me with a sword, and it's a retractable sword, but it's heavy. It's nothing to play around with. So after every take, he would make sure that I was comfortable and safe, and that I didn't need anything. And he had just met me, so that was really kind. So yeah, everyone's been great.
Speaking of famous co-stars, you've even done a movie with a certain Keanu Reeves.
Yes, I have, to the bone.
So,
yes.
So is Keanu as nice as his reputation precedes him to be?
He is. Yeah, I didn't actually get to work with him on set. I didn't have any scenes with him, but he was at the table read, and he was at Sundance, and at the after party, and he is as nice as everyone says. He just has this very calming presence. I don't know what his personal life is like, obviously, but for us, he just had a very calming demeanor and was just very kind and just exuded that warmth and made you feel very comfortable. And not at all, he doesn't appear at all to be pretentious or oh, look at me. He introduces himself, and he was just very very kind human. So all of that is true.
Note to self: must interview Keanu Reeves.
Yes, absolutely.
Right, so you've done a fair few horror movies, so I'm guessing you know what makes a good horror movie.
I don't know if I know what makes a great one. I've loved them for a long time. I watched my first horror film when I was 11. We rented it at a birthday party.
Oh, but you could not have picked a better one.
Yeah, I'm not sure why her parents let us rent it. I'm pretty sure I scarred my friend for life because she's terrified of horror movies now. But that was kind of my first introduction, and I love it. And I loved the remake as well they did recently. So I'm a big horror fan. I never really imagined growing up I would get to be in them. So I think it's been awesome that I have, and I've done a variety of the different subgenres, like the psychological, the slasher, the monster movie. I've gotten to do several of the subs, so that's been really fun. For me, I try to look for horror films that, for me personally, that have a character I can dive into. Like Bastard, for example, was such a fun one because she had such a great character development and arc to her, and she changed so much during the story. So at the end, she started out as this very meek, mild introvert, very shy into herself, and then at the end, she's the final girl. She comes out of her shell and is able to defeat the bad guy and win the day. And so it's really fun playing that. So for me, it's a character that I can really dive into and flesh out, and that has a real human experience going on. I like to watch all of them, even ones that are just girls running around being chased or whatever. That's not personally the one I want to do as an actor, but I will. I definitely watch pretty much anything. So
pretty much anything.
Well, horror wise,
all right.
I'm more forgiving horror. I mean, I like all genres, of course, but I'm more forgiving horror-wise than other films. It's if a drama's bad, it's bad. But if a horror movie's bad, you'll still watch.
All right. Have you seen Fede Alvarez's two horror helpings of Evil Dead and Don't Breathe?
Yeah.
Oh, you have? Ooh.
Yeah.
All right, then. Since you've told me a story about how young you were when you watched your first horror, I'll tell you mine. It was very late at night. I was 8 years old, and I watched Alien.
Wow.
That scarred me for 20 years. I did not even watch that movie until literally 20 years later.
Yeah, that's rough at 8.
Yeah, unfortunately, it didn't help that I was watching it in the pitch blackness as well. That didn't help it whatsoever. So literally, I broke the cardinal rule of don't watch a horror movie with the lights off, which unfortunately I did, and I paid for it.
Yeah.
So
well, sometimes horror movies you have to watch with the lights off because it's so dark you can't see. So you have to have it dark so you can see the screen. So I think they do that on purpose so that you have to turn off the lights.
That's fair enough, then. Oh yes.
But yeah,
Sorry, carry on.
I can't imagine watching that movie at 8. That definitely would have been rough for me, I think. Or maybe not. I don't know.
Well, you were a bit smarter than 8-year-old me was. Right, so you've got 2 movies out this year, haven't you? Los Angeles and the Dark Foe. Is there anything you can tell us about them?
Yeah, well, so those 2 haven't actually released yet. I filmed them a couple years ago, and the trailers are out, but they haven't actually fully released. But Limbo has, which I can talk about that in a second.
Yep,
but yeah, so A Dark Foe is basically about a police officer, detective, who is trying to catch a serial killer. And I can't give too much away about my character yet, but I'm one of Graham Greene plays a serial killer, and I'm one of his I will say trophies. Well, I'll kind of leave it mysterious because I don't want to give too much away about that yet because it hasn't come out. But yeah, working with Graham Greene and Selma Blair, and they're all great. Graham, I worked with a bunch, and he's really lovely and very nice, and had really great stories to tell about past movies that he worked on. So it was really interesting to sit and talk to him. And then you mentioned Los Angeles, which I filmed as well, and that's about, I play a mute girl who goes on a journey with an escaped convict. So that one was not a horror and not a thriller. It's it's different genre. Which my family and friends that don't like horror, they are very excited that I'm doing something other than horror. So
they would be, wouldn't they?
Yeah. So that one was really fun. Like I said, she's mute. And it's a selective mutism, so she could talk if she wanted to, but she chooses not to. And so instead of, and her character, the man who adopted her tried to teach her, formal sign language, but she just refused. So she came up with her own sign language. So she has her own language of communicating. And so that was really fun and interesting to figure out with the director, what different words meant what and how I communicated them to people that didn't know me. So it was really fun and interesting and also challenging because then I had to remember the signs that we came up with. So, and keep in that. So I'm really excited for people to see it. I saw a screening recently and I'm really, really happy with it. So I'm excited for people to see that one. It's a really fun movie.
Yeah. Do we have? Is it actually out now, or is it out in a few months?
Yeah. Those 2 are not out yet. They are not out yet. So I just the director for Los Angeles. We had a private kind of over online for now until we can actually be in a theater together screening, just so that we could see it since it had been a while since we filmed it and kind of get an idea of where it was at.
Yeah.
But it's not out yet. But I did do a movie, Limbo, that is out with James Purefoy and Lou Temple, and that one is out on Amazon and VOD and any places you can rent, iTunes. You can rent a movie, and that one is about a murderer. Lou Temple plays a murderer who dies and goes to limbo to decide if he's going to go to heaven or hell. He basically is put on trial, and in that one I play someone from Lou Temple's past, and it's out, so I guess I can kind of
give us a few details, let's say. Just not spoil it too much.
So they basically bring in different witnesses to either, go on the stand and on his behalf or against him. And I play his mom when he was a little boy who I won't give this away, who I died. I play a drug addict, but a lot of issues. And so I died when he was little. And so when I first come to talk, he, doesn't even, I don't even recognize him because, I haven't seen him since he was a little boy because I was died. So yeah, I come to testify basically against him, and that he deserves to go to hell. So that was a really interesting and challenging role for sure, because even in Limbo, I mean, even in hell, because she was in hell, so even in hell, her punishment, for being a drug addict and not a good person is that she's in perpetual withdrawal, basically.
Uh-huh.
And she's always chasing that next fix, and they promise her that, and they don't ever deliver. So it's just like a cycle of that. So that was really challenging, definitely.
I noticed in the Dark Photo there's a certain actor who I have seen in just about everything by the name of Glenn Morshower.
Yes.
What is he like? Because I've seen him in just about everything that you can actually think of. Is he actually as nice as I actually think he is?
Yeah, he is. He's really nice. Yeah, he pops up in everything.
Yeah.
It's like at Universal, he's like in the Transformers ride. Because he's in the movie or whatever. And it's funny. It was like everywhere you look, you're like, there he is. Yeah, he's really, really nice. Nice guy, funny, down to earth. Just super, super kind.
Because the reason I asked, and if there's a gamer who's listening will testify to this, he's actually done a few Call of Duties, so that's the other reason where I know him from. But I didn't know him about Transformers as well, because he was actually quite funny in that.
Yeah, he's great. He in a Dark Foe, he's like a police detective, but so his character is like very no nonsense, but he's like the opposite off that.
Right, another note. Must get Glenn Morshower.
Yeah.
Thank you for leaving me with all these notes. Right, so obviously you made To the Bone, which was a Netflix movie, so would you consider going for... Well, I did put the Triple Crown originally, but there's obviously the Grand Slam because there's Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, and now it's HBO Max, so...
Yep.
We'll go as far as the Grand Slam, but obviously in England we don't get HBO Max.
Oh, that's disappointing.
I know. Zack Snyder's cut of Justice League's on there. I want to see it.
Yeah, there's such great stuff on there, and they're coming out with their own shows. And I watched Love Life with Anna Kendrick. It was great. That's
another one I want to watch. Oh. You see, Americans always get the good stuff. We English never get any of the good stuff.
Well, do you have Hulu? Because you didn't mention Hulu.
I don't think I've got Hulu. Well, I can have a look for it, but at this point in time, I am not exactly sure.
Yeah, I mean, I would take all of those. If I could be on all of those streaming, Hulu, Amazon, Netflix, HBO Max, a show or a movie, I would continue to take all of them. They make great content, and Apple Plus is great. I'm watching, even though I'm late to the game because we just got Apple Plus, but I'm watching the morning show right now with Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon, and it's so fantastic. So I'll take all of it.
Why not? I would as well. So obviously, being an actress, what have you learned yourself, and what have you learned from others since you started out?
Oh, that's a good question. I think do more listening than talking, which I think is a great rule in life as well.
If only all people did that, that'd be brilliant.
Yeah, that would be brilliant. I try to do that as much on set as possible, of just listening to all the different departments, the actors, and watching. If I'm able to and allowed to, I will ask to stay back if I'm not filming something to watch. I did that on Criminal Minds and SVU. I didn't get to on Station 19, so there wasn't that capability of where we were filming, but I love to just sit and watch other actors work and their process and how they approach the work and come into it. So I've learned so much from doing that, and like I said, just listening more than speaking and letting, other people share their knowledge and what advice I can get from others instead of, So I think, without getting into too much specifics as far as like little things, but that's been the most helpful, I think, is just being able to watch as much and absorb as much and just be like a sponge and just get as much as I can from anyone I'm working with. Like I said, with Graham, just listening to him talk about different movies, because, when we were filming, we were in like a club, and so in between we were just sitting in like a little booth, and people would come up to him and talk to him about and ask him about Dances with Wolves and just different movies he's done, and he would just share stories, and it was just so interesting just to sit and listen to him talk, and about the other stuff that he had done, and just interesting. Yeah, so that's my favorite part, really, is just being able to like learn as much as I can from other people.
I'm guessing he's got a few tales to tell.
Yes. Yes, he definitely does. Yeah, for sure.
All right, if you thought that question was complicated, wait until you hear this one. How have you evolved as an actress?
Yeah, these are great questions.
I do my best.
Yeah, I've been in class, in and out of class, since I moved to Los Angeles. I'm at the Berg Studios, and from when I first started till now, I would say, like, looking back at my work and the way I approach the work, I feel like I've gained something from each character I've played. I either find something about myself that I didn't know, or something in myself, true self, comes out, or I'm able to use that, or I'm just able to grow as a person and as an actor within that role, because I pushed myself a little bit further each time. And I feel like with class and the mix of that and the mix of characters I've played, I've been able to just continue to have the confidence to try to go outside the box, to think outside the box, to push the boundaries a bit of what the role maybe says, to give myself permission to have fun, which sounds silly, but can easily go away when there's stress and trying to get it right and all of that stuff. And just to give self permission to play, to explore, to really follow what my coach calls pleasure principle, which is doing what you want to do versus what you think they want. Because in reality, like, especially with auditions, I don't think, most of the time they don't know what they want. A great casting director said, if we knew what we wanted, we would just offer the role, which I remind myself of that, meaning that I can come into this audition and do what I want and present what I would do with the character. And if they want to give me a redirection, if I'm going the wrong way, they'll tell me, they can tell me. But instead of sitting at home going, okay, what do they want? Because I'm never going to figure it out, and they don't even know. It's like they want to, when they see it, it's like, okay, there it is, kind of thing. So not losing myself in that. I think that's the way that I've evolved as an actor, just being able to really, really, truly do what I want to do and and follow my instincts and not push them down. If that makes sense.
Definitely does. Yeah, but yeah, you got to say, being an interviewer isn't an easy job, because you've got to do research. You've got to make sure that the questions are absolutely perfect and fine-tuned, and obviously to make sure that you've done your research on the person as well.
Yeah.
But obviously not as hard as being an actress trying to nail something.
Yeah, I mean, research comes into acting too. Yeah, for sure. It's like, even if you're not playing a real person, several of the roles I've played, like Criminal Minds and SVU, have been based on, loosely based on true stories, like the Turpin family in California, or the 3 girls that were kidnapped in Cleveland. And you want, for me, I want to do them justice as best as I can. And I know that there are people watching the shows that have been have suffered similar things, maybe not been kidnapped, but have suffered abuse um, or feeling, trapped and all of those things. And I want people at home to be able to say, okay, that's my story. Like and that's really precious to me. And I want, to do the best job I can with that. So, that's all. That all is, like you said, it's all involved, and it's, a very interesting and hard process at the same time, for sure.
Speaking of being an interviewer, there is rumour has it that you were an interviewer yourself on the documentary The Hungry Stat.
I did, one time.
So you kind of know how it feels to be me sat where I am.
Yeah, it's interesting to be on the other side and to ask the questions. And, I've done a little bit more of that. I tried to do some of that during quarantine, as far as having people on to my Instagram Live that I could ask some questions to, as well, like actors that I, worked with, or people that I'd worked with and admire. And it's interesting being on the other side and listening to their view and their journey. And, I feel like as an actor, we talk so much about ourselves that it gets a little like, ugh. So it's nice to be able to hear another side and what other people's journey has been like. Because it's easy to get bogged down in your own and like what's not going right. And if you're struggling or whatever, and it's helpful to hear other people's journey and their same struggle, and it's like, okay, there is a light at the end. So yeah, it was really interesting to do that side of it. I had a lot of fun. But
you wouldn't give it up in favor of acting, would you?
No. I mean, I wouldn't give up acting. No. But I love, I would love to do one day. I hope I get the chance to the Actors on Actors, where they have the two actors that ask each other questions. I love watching those interviews. I think they're really fascinating. And you find out a lot more information about people and the process, I think, than a lot of when they're just on regular talk shows. And I hope to be able to get to do that one day. I love those interviews, and I would love to be able to ask an actor I admire questions like that.
Should also have a game of Never Have I Ever.
Yes.
Right, so this next part is just a little section that I'd like your insight into, just because you are an actress and you have literally started out, you've been at the bottom, you've worked your way up. So if there was somebody who basically felt their career was going nowhere, what advice would you give them?
It's a great question, and it's tricky because it depends a lot on like where you are in the world, what market. I mean, as far as like what market. Are you in LA? Are you in the Southeast? Are you in New York? Are you in a different country? A lot of times that can influence an answer as far as what the best answer is, but we'll just assume that an actor is here in LA.
Well, I was about to say we can use LA as an example, since that's where you are.
I want to preface that so that people listening aren't like, oh, this only applies to, So I mean, it generally applies to everyone, but when an actor feels stuck, which I have many times in my career, first thing I say is always go back to class if you're not in class. Class for me, there's such a weird stigma of class, and so many people like to, these 50 actors didn't have acting class, and look where they are now, and I don't like that, because I don't think that, acting class is not just for people that don't know how to act or are just starting out. I mean, for me, it's like I'm in like the master class, so there's actors that are in class that are series regulars, that are working actors, that are there to use it as a basically working out. You work out your body at the gym, you work out your craft at class. I mean, that's where you figure things out if something's not working, if you have a block, if you're like, I just need to be creative for 30 minutes or 4 hours or whatever. That's where I definitely would start for me, because that kind of just opens up, creative juices and things flowing. And then, getting together with friends and making stuff if people want, or making your own stuff, or filming yourself doing scenes or monologues, just to get the acting going if things are just not moving, because it's easy just to stop all that if auditions aren't happening, or you can't get representation, or whatever is going on in this whatever you're stuck. When that happens, a lot of actors tend to just stop acting, and I think you have to do the opposite. You have to push yourself, even if you're going to class every week and that's all you're doing. I think it just starts to open up things, and you start to feel creative and motivated again. So that would be, I think, my advice.
Very, very good advice. I'm going to say I've had those occasions where I didn't think I'd get very far in interviewing, but I've actually got quite far now. So I'm actually relieved that I didn't give up.
Yeah, that's the other thing, is like just not giving up. It's a hard, if this is what you truly love, I'm all for people if they decide that acting or whatever it is that they're doing isn't for them, because that does happen, then you should absolutely go and pursue what you want to do. But if this is something that you want, that you love, that you can't imagine doing anything else, and you just have to keep stepping and keep going.
Like I said, sound advice, and I hope if anyone is having that those sorts of thoughts, that they've took your advice on board.
Yeah.
So obviously you're an actor / actress. So this is what I'd like your insight to. Obviously, with everything that's gone on, a lot of cinemas have shut, but ours in the UK have reopened, thankfully. So with that in mind, do you think cinemas will be replaced by straight streaming releases, or do you think cinemas will, I'll say, be here in the long run?
I don't know as far as like what I necessarily think will happen. I know what I want to happen. I hope that movie theaters stay open. I do think that there is something special about going and seeing a movie big screened. There's just some things that don't work as well on the small screen, and some movies are meant to be seen largely, and there's something also really fun and special about going and sitting at the movies and having your popcorn and your snacks or whatever you have. I don't know, there's just like, it's an experience. It's just different than sitting at home on the couch watching a movie. It just doesn't feel the same. And I'm all for streaming. I watch obviously tons of streaming movies and shows, so I'm definitely on board with that as well. But I hope that the movie theater doesn't go away, because I very much miss going to the movies, and I'm looking forward to when I can do that again.
I must admit, there's been a fair few I've interviewed have actually agreed with you on that point.
Well, that's good. I'm glad I'm not alone.
All right, then let's talk about Rebekah Kennedy. What is Rebekah Kennedy passionate about?
Oh, I won't say acting, because that's obvious. As far as like what else I really like to do, I'm really passionate about reading. I just started getting into backpacking. I love to camp. I'm really big in camping, so I just recently had my first backpacking trip, which people don't know the difference as far as like when you car camp, you obviously drive in with all your stuff in the car, and so you can bring like a ton of stuff. And when you backpack, obviously you have it all on your back, and whatever you're gonna, you hike into however far into the camp, so you can only bring whatever you can carry on your back. So we did our first trip in June, and I had a blast, even though it was hard at some points, because I never carried a pack before. But we got my husband a new bag last night, actually, so I'm looking forward to our next adventure. So I'm just really passionate about having adventures, and even if it's something small or a night thing, just being able to get out and do and explore new things, have new experiences, that just fulfills me so much and makes me really happy, even if it's just like a day thing. It just gives me a lot of joy. I'm also really passionate about helping the homeless. I haven't really been able to do as much this year for obvious reasons with COVID, but in the past I had a group that we went out on Saturdays and gave out water and granola bars to homeless people in the park. And I'm really, I know it doesn't change their circumstances, but, my hope is to give them a little bit of hope for the day and for that hour. So yeah, those are a couple things.
I'm pretty sure they appreciate it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what would you say are your career highlights thus far? Because obviously you've got a long career ahead of you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
So I've really enjoyed all of the things I've gotten to do. I always hate, people always ask me, what's your favorite? And it's so hard to answer favorite things because I feel like you're picking a favorite child. I don't have children, but I imagine that's what it would feel like to just, So, I mean, I want to preface that with I've enjoyed everything. So anything I say is not like, oh, I didn't like other projects. I mean, I would say definitely doing SVU was definitely a career highlight for me as far as having being able to play a role that I just absolutely just fell in love with, Esther. I wanted to be able to tell her story so badly, so I was so excited. I cried when I found out I booked it. Just like as silly as it sounds, to be able to work on a show like that that's so iconic, that's been on for so long, in a role that I absolutely just loved, and that people have had such a strong response to still. I mean, it came out, 2 years ago, and I'm still getting messages about the episode, and that's really awesome. So that's been, definitely one of, I guess, hitting a kind of a thing that I really wanted to be able to do, was to be on that show. So that was cool that I got to do that. But yeah, I've had many great experiences. It's like doing my first feature, House Hunting, which was like my first big feature on location. We filmed in Virginia. It was like, that was like a huge step in like, okay, this is a lead role in a feature film. Can I do this kind of thing, Yeah. So it's like different, working with Nicolas Cage, like different things, doing Criminal Minds. I watched that show growing up. I loved that show. So it's like, working with Keanu Reeves, like there's so many things that I've just been, that I've loved, that I've been so lucky to have gotten to do, that I really am thankful for. So, yeah.
So we'll just say everything then.
I will just say everything has been a highlight.
All right then. What other projects have you got coming up, obviously, depending on quarantine?
Yeah, so, there's nothing in the works quite yet because of COVID. So hopefully, things are starting back. Auditions are starting. Things are starting to film again. TV shows are up and running, or at least some are up and running. So there's hope for this fall for sure. And we talked about the two, Los Angeles and A Dark that haven't come out yet. So
which we did.
Those are definitely, hopefully, probably, maybe next year, only because of what's been going on this year. So I guess we'll see with those. But nothing yet in the works, but hopefully many more things to come.
Yep. All right then. What would you like the future to hold for you?
I mean, I honestly, like right now, I would love to be on a series, like long running, or as a series regular, just to be coming into your homes every week would be is a goal of mine right now. Obviously, love movies, still want to do movies as well. But yeah, that's definitely a goal, as well as doing more movies too. I'll take it all.
Yeah. So a healthy acting career is what you would suggest. What you would say. Yeah.
Yes. And to be able to keep playing roles that I love and that I can really continue to sink my teeth into. Sure.
All right then. So if people want to find you on social media, where would they find you and where?
They can find me on Instagram, Bekah, Bekahk, because my name initially was taken, like Rebekah Kennedy was gone, so I had to pick something else, and at the time, Instagram was not what it is now, so a lot of people are like, who is this following me? Like, who is this? But that's where you can find me on Instagram. I'm also on Twitter, it's like at Rebekah Kennedy, Rebekah, for anyone that's going to try to spell it differently. Yeah.
Not on Facebook?
I am on Facebook, but I don't. My main page is pretty much maxed out on friends, and I do have a like page, but I don't really update it because I was just feeling like I was doing this, like people were getting the same updates. Like if I would update my personal and then I update my other ones, like I'm saying the exact same things. And I have a lot of family and obviously friends on my private ones, so they want to know what's going on. So I just was like, this feels like a lot. And I didn't want to just make a like page because then I can't interact with, like, I can't see what other people are posting, and I don't like that it's just about me. That's weird. So maybe one day I'll have like the other as well. But for now, since there's other platforms, like, and usually my Facebook page is, my posts are usually public, so people could actually, you can follow me there. There's like a follow button or whatever. I just can't accept friend requests because I don't have any more room. So that's a long story to tell, but yeah.
It's not bad. It's not a bad thing. I mean, I've got my Facebook page I use for reviews, but I'm mainly found on Twitter, so I totally understand that decision.
Yeah, it's hard. I wish Facebook would not have a cap. I wish they would get rid of like how many friends you're allowed to have. Like Instagram and Twitter, obviously you can have as many followers as
you want.
Yeah. So I don't know why Facebook has a cap on it. So.
All right, Rebekah.
Maybe if you're listening, Facebook, you should fix that.
Go and get Mark Zuckerberg on Twitter if he's on. He'll sort you out. So and on that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Rebekah Kennedy.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.